welcome to Close Up. Usually, we from time to time would have a chance to speak to a number of very, very important persons in various facets of society, various aspects of life in our country. And today is one such program where I have the opportunity to speak to somebody that I have saluted since I became a journalist. And even these years, you may see his twilight years, but there is no seam of letting up at all. This young gentleman that I'll be speaking to, and we thought it best today, since we had a chance to meet with him, that we give you an opportunity to look into his mind. Yes, so here we're talking about veteran theater and cultural icon, and of course, journalist Francis Kwame Nafaria. Sir, it's a distinct honor having you on Close Up.
Well, I'm certainly happy to be here with you, Mark, because we've known each other for some time. And actually, this whole complex, I was one of the first persons and staff in this complex here on Homestretch Avenue, because the initial idea was for Guyana to be the Hollywood of the Caribbean when this complex was constructed. And this was supposed to have been the place where films shot in the Caribbean, in Guyana, were to be edited, and we would have been the Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, whether they would have called us the
At that time.
Caribwood or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is what this complex
Okay.
was set up to be, and I am happy to say that I was part of that initial plan.
And you're still here, moving on to 80 years. Uncle Francis is a big boy, and so you'll be celebrating 80 very soon,
Next March.
next March. Let's talk about Francis the man. Where does Francis come from?
Well, Francis came from what I would want to call a Caribbean background. Let me explain. My mother was Guyanese to the bone. My father was a Grenadian to the bone. So I grew up in a family. My father married to my mother in a family environment in which, although at that time the term Caribbean man was not as yet coined and used, but I grew up in a situation in which I could safely say I was a Caribbean man, because I knew that I had relatives in Grenada and Trinidad and other parts of the Caribbean, while we grew up in the then British Guyana, we being my siblings and I. And so that initial knowledge of myself as to who I am, I would have thought of being a Caribbean man, even though that term was not as yet established.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about your siblings and how many of them they were or still are.
Yes. Okay, my mom gave birth to 6. 2 died as babies, and the 4 of us grew. My brother and my sister have since deceased. Well, my only sister, and my elder brother and myself, we are still here and doing reasonably well health-wise. So I guess I have a few more years, I hope, to be around, making some mischief.
Quite a busybody. Francis, the journalist. Let's talk about your journalistic career, when it all got started.
I can't pinpoint an exact day, week, month, or year, but growing up in Macdoom Agricola and attending the St. Anne's School, then the St. Anne's Anglican, we had a broad-based type of education. And even though in those early years, I can't remember the term journalist, I can't even remember the term reporter. I think it was newspaper man or radio man or something like that. As a matter of fact, we didn't have a radio in our home until I was probably 14 or 15. So the media, well, of course, television was not around. So the newspaper and radio were the means of journalism and reporting. But we were encouraged to listen, when we did have a radio, to listen to the BBC. It was part of our upbringing, even though at that time I never knew that I would have been in journalism. But the old folks of those years inculcated an idea that one should learn more about outside of your immediate community. So, yes, what transpired and what played out in Macdom Agricola were important things, but we were always taught to listen to the news, whether it's on the local radio, Radio Demerara in those days, or the BBC. And so, indirectly, I was being trained, without knowing it, to be a reporter, journalist, etc.
Mm. You've covered many stories far and wide. You've traveled to many cities, many places that I really hope to really have a chance to lay my feet on in my lifetime. And some of the stories that have really stood out in your mind, even at this age, at this stage of your life, can you recall at least one of them for me? Some of the events that you may have covered?
I'm going to tell you a simple one, which has given me joy, and every time I recall of it. I was going to Bartica. In fact, I was there just recently. And we left Bartica, the party I was in, and we traveled across the estuary of the Mazaruni into the Cuyuni. We went to a small village on the left bank of the Cuyuni, about half a mile, I believe, from where it enters into the Mazaruni. It was a school day, and I was videotaping. And I saw a young lady, a girl I dare say, maybe 12, 13, and she was at home on a school day. And I said to her, "Miss, why aren't you at school?" And her response, I counted the words, 23 words, which in essence she was saying to me, her parents can't afford to send her because it's a cost factor to get to Bartica, school at Bartica, because her village didn't have a school. I ran with the story. I had it on the evening news. I got a call from Stanley Ming, and to fast track the story, he got together with Banks DIH and as well as the oil company, what's the name of it? Not SO, the other one. Shell.
Shell. Okay.
Shell. And these three corporate citizens got together, supplied a boat, an outboard engine, and fuel for a year. The arrangement was that the region would pay for the operations, and that's the captain, to pick up students
Including
from
this
that
girl.
rivering area who couldn't get to school in Bartica because they didn't have the money. When the boat was to be launched, the official launching, I was invited. And they picked up students from the various rivering communities in the Essequibo, Cuyuni, Mazaruni area. And as the boat was heading in from across from, what's that place? Rivers View, Dr. George Norton's village, across the Essequibo, heading into Bartica. Mark, I can tell you, if you had a cassava, you could have grated that cassava in my arms because the goose pimples, I think tears settled in my eyes. And I'm saying, Mark, 23 words of a 12-year-old girl were more powerful, to my mind, than even maybe a minister of government, because her 23 words made what was happening at that point in time, and it still happens. A boat with outboard engine facilitating getting school children who otherwise would not have gotten to school in Bartica. 23 words by what one might call a nobody, a little 12, 13-year-old girl. That is one of the stories that I always
Stayed
remember
with you.
and that I'm proud of. There's one other, just let me check one other quickly. Mahdia, I was in Mahdia, and there was this police constable, afternoon, 4:35 into 6 nightfall, and he's there with the youths, and he seemed to have known every ball game, and he's interacting with these youths, football, cricket, wrong does the works. So I interviewed him, put it on the evening news. Some months later, I was somewhere in the police headquarters, and then Commissioner Laurie Lewis said to me, "Oh, Mr. Farry, I promoted that rank, that constable. I've promoted him." So I wasn't quite sure what Mr. Lewis was saying. He says, I said, Mr. Commissioner, I don't quite follow you. He says, "Man, you had him on TV, the guy at Madia that was with the kids playing, all these ball games. I promoted him." Mark, that's another story I did, which brought me tremendous joy and pleasure as a journalist. That I put on that constable doing above and beyond the call of duty, service and protection with those youngsters. And because I put on that little story, he got a promotion. That's another story I feel very proud
And I'm
about.
sure there are many other stories that you would have gotten positives from just by your little writing and some of the clips that you've taken. Let's talk. We're talking here about service, and we're here chatting with veteran journalist, theatre man, cultural icon, and I want to go straight into the world of theatre. In the 60s, and even to present day, you're still busy, but I want to take you back to the 60s. The word of theatre. Um, of course, I saw a few clips with you and Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, clips with some of the uh, former ministers and quite a number of different people that you would have shared a moment with in your young days as a young man on the stage. Those memories are still with you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. What I can say, and there's a shift now. I always am very careful, Mark, when I try to make comparisons between the then and now. But if you live in a world, you should consider the then and now. I'm not saying one needs to live in the then, but it is vitally important. Like driving your car, it's good to take a little glance in your rearview mirror from time to time.
Yes.
Who's creeping up behind you? So in making a glance at the then, what I find in the theatre of the then, you had the gamut of age groups, especially the Theatre Guild. You had people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all intermingling. And who is Sir and Mr. out there in the office, you were encouraged to address by first name. So your boss, when you meet him at the Theatre Guild, he's not Mr. Thomason, he's Frank. But you were disciplined enough to know that that's within the walls of the Theatre Guild. We're equal. You might be a more brilliant actor or actress than I am. You get the starring roles. But I am in a play with you. And I know that, like life, the humblest person is important. And let me tell you a story quickly, Mark. And this could be a theatre play or a scene. My wife, who I always like to say is one of the best secretaries in the history of Guyana, barring people like Selena Harewood. My wife was working with a very important person as his secretary. Easter comes along. The messenger, who was then elevated by title to by the then President Burnham, no longer messenger. You're now an office assistant, of course. Office assistant. We embellished the title. But this guy was a whatless, and he was fired at Easter. When his desk was checked, there were over 20 Christmas cards that he did not deliver. So his boss was under the view that all his colleagues had gotten their Christmas cards, not delivered. Point I'm making here, Mark, is here was a messenger slash office assistant who is maybe only person below him would be the child lady. But he messed up the image of his boss by not delivering those Christmas cards. Point I'm making here is every single person matters. And back to theatre. The first workshop that I attended at the Theatre Guild, it was run by a Trinidadian, Dr. Oh my, his name eludes me at the moment. However, I'll get it just now. He ran the workshop. It was a 2-week workshop. Errol Hill, Dr. Errol Hill from Trinidad. He was a playwright, professor at the university. And Dr. Errol Hill, at the close of the workshop, told us a little story to point out how important everybody is. He said, here's a play. Dozens of people in this scene. And there's principal actors here doing their thing, you know. And the little girl at stage right, she figured she was only making up numbers. All she needed to do was stand and make up numbers. She was unimportant. Dr. Hill is relating this story, true or not, I don't know, but he wanted to make a point. He said, and this young lady started to look up at the roof, look at the proscenium arch. In other words, as far as she's concerned, she's only making up numbers. So this gentleman's wife in the audience, she noted this young lady looking up. She looked up to see what this young lady on stage was looking up at. Her husband saw his wife looking up. He wanted to know what his wife was looking up at. He looked up. Next person, and the next, second row, and then the entire audience. Everybody was looking up. And then the lead actors on stage doing their thing, noticing the entire audience looking up, lost concentration, missed their lines, the whole play collapsed, and Dr. Ariel said, and all because one little young lady who thought she was that unimportant was looking up, and she made a play collapse. Everybody is important in life. So it is the office assistant who didn't deliver those Christmas cards, and his boss unknowingly was shortchanged, as it were. Everyone is important, and from the president to the policeman to the pauper to whoever, every single individual is important. So in theater, whether you're playing the starring role, as in life, whether you're the president or a pauper, you are important.
That's right. You got a significant role to play. Let's talk about culture. You've been a cultural ambassador for quite a long time. Everywhere, I think just about every territory in the region, every country you've gone to, their cultural programs. What continues to drive you on? You're still traveling, even as you get to that beautiful age of 80, still following a lot of these programs. But tell us what it is that causes you to really follow these programs everywhere that they're held.
I have been brought up in a society, in a community, Macdum Agricola, to, well, if I should borrow a line from the National Pledge, to love my fellow citizens. And how do you express love, Mark? Just to say I love you? She got to deliver.
Yeah.
There is something in the scriptures, the Bible, that says love without deeds, like empty symbols, make a lot of noise. You've got to follow up I love you with action. And if I'm saying to love my fellow citizens, then I need to do something about it. We know in life there are a lot of selfish people, people who want to just grab. Okay, they do their thing. But I prefer to serve. And I'm happy when I serve. I'm happy when I can make somebody feel good. Even if the most expensive thing yet doesn't cost a cent to do is to a smile.
Just real smile.
I feel happy when I go past somebody, and I've been inculcating this, and I would recommend this to people. As you move around, you will see somebody, and you look at that person, their face, as we were saying, are sour. They've got their world on their backs. Something is bothering them. What's it to say, hi, good morning. I came down in a minibus just now, and there was this young lady. She entered that minibus, Mark, with a good morning, everybody. And the entire minibus just lit up, and everybody responded. It didn't cost her a cent. And she obviously made everybody in that bus happy. My recommendation is we're all here to make one another happy. fair enough. We know that some people are so disagreeable. It's very difficult to tell them good morning. But do it anyway. That's my humble opinion. There's some very disagreeable people. There's some people who really, you know, make you feel that you don't want to see them. You know, they're people, they're really disgusting people. But there's all part and parcel of a society. And it could be irksome, but sometimes you